Season 7, Episode 35, number 300 of the Decoded podcast. Fitting that I believe that we'd hit 300 today because this is the last episode of Season 7, regular school.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if we're on next week, it's summer school because school will be over for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. And now that we've started a little bit later than usual, if it's okay with you, I would like to shut this episode down at 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I like the numbers. I like
Mm-hmm.
300, 30.0. If you're okay with that, can we make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll be pretty anal on the time, then I'll watch it. I'll make sure you get in the final word, whatever you need to say before I hit end stream.
Very kind.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to Gary. Welcome, Gary.
Welcome, Gary.
Since Gary's here, I feel like there's three secondary teachers here at the moment.
All
So
right.
can I work through this one?
Yes.
Okay. When we started this podcast, one of the cool things was that you are in Newmarket and you are a secondary teacher in the public system.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by public is public school, not Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was over here in Waterloo, elementary school teacher, Catholic. Well, it only took 7 seasons, but in September, I'm going to be in secondary school. So now
Mm-hmm.
we don't have the elementary secondary thing anymore. We've got public secondary in Newmarket, Catholic secondary in Waterloo.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like this vibe. So I'm looking forward to exploring me being the kid in the candy store. Because even last week, when I was talking to secondary teachers in a more serious way about getting into secondary, they're like, dude, it's different because I'm asking questions. What about this? Oh, it's like this now. And then somebody's like, and I think you mentioned this too in a polo yesterday. Um, you never have to think about indoor recess again.
Yeah, I said that.
You did
Yeah.
say that, and I think somebody else said that. Like, there is no indoor recess in high school. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'm looking around like, what does that mean? What do you mean there's no indoor recess? What do you mean? What do you mean if it's too hot outside, we don't keep the kids in? What do you mean if it's too cold outside, we don't keep the kids in? What do you mean? Like, I don't get it. And so people here that I'm kind of talking to are enjoying that.
Mm-hmm.
They're enjoying watching me think about the transition when really I have no clue what it looks like or how it is. So this will be I'm totally excited about the change and trying to wrap my head around new operating procedures in secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and a little bit of a layer twist, you're in special education and I'm going to be doing some special education. So it's kind of like finally Roland and Chris are kind of in the same playing field now. We can
Mm-hmm.
talk about certain items and things that you will have a lot of experience in that I'll be looking at with new, fresh eyes and kind of, I look for the perimeter. I'm like, whoa, what's the procedure? Because the hardest thing about for me being a veteran elementary school teacher is when I'm talking to a newer elementary school teacher and they're like, how do you do this? I'm like, well, there's 2 ways. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, there's my way, then there's the way that's written in the book. They're like, what's the difference? I'm like, efficiency, um, preference. But at the end of the day, we the book and Roland still end up in the same spot at the end of the day. The final
Mm-hmm.
destination remains the same. How you get there, I like to say there's a little bit of style in how one
Mm-hmm.
might arrive there. So it's like I'm walking into this new job and I'm like, where's the book? What does the book say? And then I'll probably enjoy people laughing with me, at me, as they watch me navigate the book. When they're over here at the finish line, they're like, "Come on, we're waiting for you." And I'm like, "Hold on, I'm on step 3." And there's 7 steps. I need to know I need to know how the system sees this happening, and then when I build some capacity and some efficiency, then maybe I can start moving to the finish line in a different way. Who knows? But all that all that to say, Decoded Podcast started with an elementary educator and a secondary. And I know it hasn't happened yet, but it's looking like we're both going to be secondary in September. And it's different. And it's kind of cool. And I got to tell you, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this coming. Um,
You'll also never have to negotiate for your uh, planning time. You will never be owed planning time again. So sorry about that. Right.
well, that's okay. I
And
don't
just
ever
that's
want
another. I
to.
was when I think of the world that's kind of changing around you. That's a big thing. The way you go about doing your so, and we call it prep in high school. So just your prep period or your prep time. I think that's what it's called in the Catholic system. They call it
Yeah,
prep time, your
they call
prep
it
period.
prep
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
preparation time.
Yeah.
I've
Prep time.
never I've never heard a secondary teacher call it planning time. I've
No.
never heard them say that. They always call it my prep time.
I will say, so the last kind of decade that I've spent getting to know you, I appreciate the like I'm a better educator and I have a better understanding of the fundamentals of education because of your experience in elementary. Um, sorry, I ain't crossing over. so so I'll take it as like I did at least a partial good job of, priming you in some ways that you would consider maybe 0.01% here that this moment's only marginally made possible by our friendship. The Yeah, I've thinking back the things that I've been able to sort of learn and that not only about this, I know several occasions sending you text like, okay, what the hell does this mean at the elementary level? Sometimes asking about assessment for my own kids, like how could this be? Sometimes just asking about the coordination of the day. I still don't, it took me a while and I still don't entirely understand the whole planning time and how you can owe and if you're a planning time teacher, like the scheduling, the nuance. And I've taken the AQ. I had to take that. I took that. I took my junior AQ for principals when I was sort of considering the path. Right. I think I even did some assignments that had to do with scheduling, and I still don't get it. I still don't get it. But the great thing is that you're going to have those similar moments of I don't get it, and there's going to be a very rich example in front of you that you're going to be able to, as you say, you're going to parse it out. You're going to put it into a system. You're going to figure out the step by step, and you'll find the tools do crossover. The tools do a crossover. Your tools in education crossover, which is different than the tools of primary or elementary school, right? I think that is different. But you like I have spent quite some time now discussing the big picture items through local experience through this podcast and podcasts previously and our associations on social media and such. So, I mean, you're poised well for a transition. I don't think you put this. I don't think you can be primed or poised any better for a transition. I really can't think of anything else, any other experiences you could have had that would set you up with a pretty informed view of what you're stepping into. Really, like, what more could you have done? So, like, what more? You're teaching adults as well, so you've bookended this space. You've had some connection there doing the engagement work, so it's kind of like I think it's filling just an empty spot in the resume, so to speak, that you've sort of been structuring around, and now you're just going to fill it in with experience. So, makes sense to me. Makes sense to me.
Um, that's cool. And I know when I moved from primary to junior, I remember one of my mentors telling me, do not, absolutely do not let go of the awesome things that you've learned in primary, do not think that you must um, let things go because now you are in junior. What's going to make you an amazing junior teacher are the amazing things you did in primary. I mean, you
Mhm.
obviously have to cater to the audience in front of you, but I remember him saying, you can still get a picture book and sit on the carpet with your grade fives and read to them. And I guarantee you it will bring back all kinds of beautiful feelings for many of them to do
Mhm.
that. And the permission, the modeling of permission to do so, because they're going to look around, they're going to be like, what do you mean come to the carpet? We're in grade five. So what? Even
Watch me trigger you.
right. Even when I moved to I went from primary to four. So that's a small jump into junior. But I remember saying, I want a carpet in my room. So
Mm,
they gave me a carpet. Then when it turned into a 4 or 5, I think I remember telling you the only thing that was going to remove that carpet was that I had a million bodies in the room. We needed more desks. So they were going to move the carpet to put the desks in.
mhm,
And even then I fought back. Even at my max, I'm like, keep the carpet. We'll find a way. I don't want to lose the carpet because that was my connection to primary and my connection to what it means to be in front of a kid's face
mhm,
working with them. So, when I taught, so when I moved into re-engagement, working with 7 to 12 grade, um, I held on to as much primary and junior as I could in terms of really building a connection with a kid and getting to know them and sitting with them and doing the work. That for me is primary. And I know that's universal among educators, but to me, that's where I learned how to do this. This is where I learned
mhm.
how to sit with someone who was vastly different than me and try to
Yeah.
figure out what to do to help them learn. So this crazy thing happened that when I got into re-engagement, I got a taste for secondary. And I know I didn't get a taste for being in the room with 30 kids teaching history. I get that. But I got a taste for being in the building, getting a flavor for the students, how they operate. And I was like, okay, this isn't because I always looked at secondary teachers as like the adults in the room.
Mhm,
So whenever I'd meet a secondary teacher, I'm like, are they going to be full of themselves like they tend to be? There's this notion that I had, and I don't know where it came from. Almost like they thought they were better than me because
mm,
I was in elementary and they were in secondary. I, I'm sure I don't know where it came from. I'm just telling you this is kind of how I felt. And then
mhm.
the other day I was thinking, will I become will I become one of these mightier than thou secondary teachers looking down at the primary brethren? The answer is no, because my wife would kill me. I would
Mhm.
never do that. Plus I know how hard it is to be an elementary school teacher.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's not hard secondary. I'm saying there is a challenge to having 25, 6 year olds in a room that you must control and navigate and equip. Like, that's not easy. So,
It's true.
and kindergarten's even worse. Like, kindergarten's the real deal. So, I know how hard it is at every level's got their difficulties. But anyway, so re-engagement gave me a taste, and I remember the taste was palpable because in the middle of my first re-engagement year, I remember my principal saying to me in a meeting, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure. What's up?" And she said, I was talking to the superintendent, and we were wondering, how would you feel instead of focusing on students from grade 7 to 12, how would you feel if you primarily focused on the 7s and 8s and your re-engagement teaching partner focused on the 9s to 12s? And as the principal was saying it, I was doing this. I was literally nodding, no, and she was smiling. She's like, tell me more, because I got the vibe that she was more, I'm delivering the idea to you. I'm not
Mm,
telling you. I'm just delivering and let's talk. And I'm like, no, I love working with the high school kids. I love being in the high school. I love the interaction with guidance, student success, special education, administration. I'm I'm getting my feet wet in a world where I would never belong. And here
Mhm.
I am, and I'm rocking it. Like, I'm enjoying every minute. I like the collaboration. I like going into the high schools. So I'm like, "No, I don't want to do that. Are you is this like, are you ordering me to do that?" She's like, "No, no. We were talking about it, and we wondered if that's something that you might want to focus on." I'm like, "Why would I want to do that? This could go away at the end of the year, and I'm going to throw it away prematurely so that because you guys think I do better with 7 and 8 and she does
Mhm.
better with high school? No."
They the kids could use you though.
Yeah,
You'd be
whatever.
really good for Hoo, hoo, hoo. You would be really good for the kids.
I'm not going to say anything about what you just said because this would turn into an X-rated, explicitly
Bleep, bleep, bleep,
negative
bleep, bleep. I'll
version.
have my finger on the bump button. Bleep, 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 bleep. Chewbacca sound.
So bring the dog over.
I know,
Um,
eh? She's getting fuzzy. I'll
I
drop you
love
another
that.
photo. Yeah, she's getting fuzzy again. She'll get back to her chewiness by October, I
I
imagine.
love it. Right now she's the hound,
She's the
but then she
hound.
turns into a Wookiee in around October. I love that about your dog.
For Gary, we're talking about Hazel, my
Y-
dog. Yeah, Hazel.
Rochelle's here too. I
Oh,
just haven't.
Rochelle. Hey,
Good
Rochelle.
morning, Rochelle.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for the congrats. I appreciate it. Um, so re-engagement gave me a taste. It gave me a taste for what could be. So then I took my secondary qualification, as you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then re-engagement opened up again, and it was a 7-8 position. So I grabbed it. I applied, and I was successful. And I loved my job for a year and a half. And then in February, everything changed.
Dun
I
dun dun.
My re-engagement job was deemed unimportant, and it wasn't necessary anymore. So then you and I talked more about this when I was placed in a grade 7 class.
Hmm.
I remember you asked a great question that many people have asked, and I love this. I love where this question comes from because um, I perceive the question as outsiders trying to limit my growth and my interest. So I remember talking to you about, I think it's time to try to get into high school, like seriously look at whatever offers might come my way and
Hmm.
jump in. And I remember you saying, among many other people, you don't like grade 7 and 8. You don't want to be a classroom teacher in grade 7 and 8. So why would you want to go do 9? And I remember telling you the way high schools operate in my district are completely different than how they operate in other places. So grade 7s and 8s are still housed in elementary school, and they can be very challenging. Every grade has challenging students, but there's something
Hmm.
about 7 and 8 that has always kind of irked me. And I think it's has to do with perhaps power struggle and perception and puberty. Lots of P's actually. And
Hmm.
I remember saying to you, for example, it's different in high school. You have a class for 80 minutes, you work with them, they leave. You're not
Hmm.
with Jimmy all day. No,
Oh, Jimmy.
it's exhausting to navigate Jimmy, his needs, his differentiation all day long. That is exhausting. Now, it's exhausting to do the same thing with Jimmy's brother, Jeremiah, in my grade 2 class. But when I think of high school and what I've witnessed in high school, is you do your thing, kids get up and they leave, and a new group comes in. So there's
Hmm.
this constant refreshing that I have seemed to that brings it. I'm interested in that. I'm
Hmm.
interested in I want to try that. And I'm not going to bore everybody with this, but that was one of the things I remember you saying, Roland, like, if you're not interested in being grade 7, 8 teacher, then what makes you like kind of want to do 9?
Yeah,
Like,
what's the thing? What's the
what's
thing?
the thing? I told you my things. I'm not going to repeat them here, but one of them is that you're not with Jimmy all day,
Hmm.
and you've got three different Jimmys a term, and they flow. They flow through. So you work with Jimmy number 1, he leaves, Jimmy number 2 comes in, and it's a for me, that's like a reset. Okay,
Yeah.
Jimmy 1's gone, Jimmy 2's here. I need to work with Jimmy 2. I need to give him what he needs. So let's get this show on the road, okay? So anyway, um so having been thrown back into an elementary school classroom without me wanting to do so, I did that. And just the other day, I got a message from one of the staff members at the school saying the kids wanted to say they say hello. They wish you'd come back and visit. And I'm like, I wish I could come back and visit too, but I can't because I'm working. So that happens, and I get through it, and it's okay. And now I'm in a grade 5, 6 classroom for the last 2 weeks of the school year, and and I'm I'm dying in that. Like yesterday, I burst out laughing when one of the students was attempting to enter into a power struggle with me. And what I mean by that is they were looking for a fight. I was not. So at every turn, they're like, I'm going to go do this now. And I don't really care what you say. And I'm like, okay. They're like, what do you mean, okay? I'm like, go ahead. And then somebody's like, is Mr. C being serious or is he joking? And then somebody else is like, he's fine with it. Because if do you not notice what he looks like when he's serious? Like I'm hearing these things happen, and this class won't stop talking. Right? It's going to be the death of me, I think. And I'm like, can you focus on what you're supposed to be doing right now? And I've given them the this is probably the last time I'm going to be teaching in elementary school.
Mhm.
So can you guys and gals help me out and make this like a really I want to remember this experience. It's a good one. And they're like, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, that is cool. So here I am. Can we make this a relatively enjoyable experience? The kids are fine. They're just, as I've told you, I'm their 23rd supply teacher since April the 5th. So they're a little bit, they don't know what to do with the same person every day because that's not
Well,
what they're used to.
dysregulated, man. Completely
100%.
dysregulated.
Thank you. That
Right?
was the word.
Yeah, yeah. You see the power of systems and routines. And
As
love it or hate it, there is a call. There are moments of calm, sometimes longer moments of calm, by having a measurable, clear, understandable routine, right? um I get we're not looking for necessarily obedience,
mm,
but there are shades within compliance that are really useful for students of all different neurodiversity, all different sort of walks, right? And emotional development and maturity development and all these other things that are cracking off in their executive functioning party room as they're sort of getting through elementary. So
it's I like that, and I like that they're not regulated. I had a student yesterday say to me, I don't know, maybe it was the 10th time I said, I need you to stop talking now. Like you've had all these opportunities to talk. I need you to stop for a little bit. It's good for you, it's good for everybody else. And the student says, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And I said, that's not true. So don't say that. You
mhm.
are going to do it again, and you're not sorry. Like, this is how I'm talking to them. I'm not being rude. I'm just saying, you are going to do it again because I can see who you are. There's nothing wrong with who you are. We just need to work together a little bit better. So don't tell me you're sorry because you're not. And don't tell me you won't do it again because you will. How about the next time you feel like you need to be moving around and chatting, you just say, hey, Mr. C, like I need to get up and go.
Provide the
Okay.
solution.
Yeah.
Provide the solution. The one note, don't do this, I find has never been. We get there. We get there. Sometimes, if it has to do with safety, it is a one note. You're going to do compliance because it is a question of safety. If I can then have a conversation about safety away from that, and let's build some strategies that make you more safe, I mean, that's a whole other plan. But I always, even if it seems ridiculous, even if it seems ridiculous, I will provide, because sometimes you're just trying to build the habit um, of noticing when you're like in this case. So this kid that's about to talk, there's cues that the kid is responding to that triggers them into this behavior. It's science. I know too much. This is what happens. There's something that happens. You talk, the kid talks. You stop talking, the kid stops talking. Like, it doesn't take much to sort of analyze that there's something about you talking that's the cue that's triggering them to have this behavior. To stop for a moment or spend some time considering, okay, how do I either adjust my cue system so that I'm not stepping on their trap line, or how do I give them strategies because it's inevitable they're going to step on the trap line and they're going to trigger into a behavior. So give them the solution right there and enforce the solution. No, if you are intending not to interrupt me, then here's one solution that you're going to test drive. I want you to test drive it today and give me some feedback. So providing that, yeah, I've said a ton of different stuff. If the kids that sort of that are chronic interrupters, there's a myriad of reasons why they do. I have one student right now that his first response is why. He's now at the point where he says why. He's like, oh, and now you have something to talk about. My instruction to him is, instead of saying why, go ahead and blurt, because he can't stop blurting. But 2 conditions. You have to shape a full sentence out. And he's like, why? I'm like, perfect example. When you ask why, what is it you want to know? And he starts to say what he wants to know. I'm like, that's not a why question. That's a how question. He's like, you're right. It's a how question. I'm like, so ask that question instead. So I'm going to let you blurt, but I want you to ask a better question. And then he automatically has stalled. He's like, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, no, I don't know what I'm going to ask. I'm like, okay, cool. So give that solution. That's just, for me, life in spec ed is all about that. How do you not squash an opportunity to sort of help them see themselves, help them notice where they're at. So
I find myself in the middle of that, and in the
mhm.
middle of, now there's only 1 week of school left. There's lots of interruptions, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey, I'm just getting into my stride." And they're like, "Take a hike. Like, we're gonna run right over you if we have to," kind of thing, because we're done. Um,
Take a hike.
anyway, so
I like that.
we just hit 27 minutes 45 seconds, and so
Boom.
I said we should stop at the 30.
Yep.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to keep going?
No, I'm fine to keep it tight. I got
Okay.
stuff to do. You got stuff to do. Yeah.
Um, so a couple of things. Gary says, "Feel free to reach out if I need anything. You're on my speed dial, brother." So, uh,
Hmm.
because I'm gonna need people outside of my bubble to talk to, because sometimes you can't talk to the people that are sitting right beside you because they're sitting right beside you. Hey, thanks, Rochelle. I appreciate it. And yeah, Gary says, don't ditch those skills. They're an asset in secondary.
Hmm.
They've been an asset everywhere I've gone and everything I've done. So I'm going to continue to use them. I'm going to continue to lean on, maybe sometimes when this happened in re-engagement. When I'm working with a grade 11 student, sometimes I try to see the 7-year-old in them and try to see what happened between then and now that you find yourself in the position you're in. So I don't know, it's just this perspective, I guess, this moment I get. It's kind of cool for me. I will never regret the time I spent in elementary. I love being a primary school teacher, but it's time for me to do other things now. And the state of elementary school is out of control, in my opinion, and I'm looking forward to something different. Um, so that's where I'm going
Love
to
it.
land there. We're at 29:15. So, any final words? Were you able to do any art?
I did none today.
This
I
is a
did
whack
none.
300 episode.
Yeah, I did not. I'll do something after. This
Okay.
is it's too express. It was like express adrenaline um run. I've said it before. The only thing I'll close on is, like, I love the fact, like, our pod is not for everybody. It's definitely for us. I appreciate, again, Gary dropping in and Rochelle dropping in. Like, really, like, seriously, folks, thanks for like hanging out. Like, it ain't PD, but there's something that we're doing that has an element of professional development. It's I think there's a personality here. That I found other people, one of the things they kind of say, like, it feels like they're sort of sitting at that staff room table listening us just to talk about interesting topics. So I would say the topics become interesting because interesting people, as Gary said, enjoying the conversations, interesting people being able to sort of help shape what we're talking about and jumping in. I'll say definitely using this as a live opportunity brings a vibrancy to it, because I know Gary's somewhere in your region and Rochelle is somewhere in your region. And here we are kind of meeting up on a Saturday morning, which the context is slightly ridiculous, but 300 episodes and we're still finding new things to talk about in education and about being a dad and kind of like in our relationships and friendships. Like there really is something special to this. And I appreciate Rochelle and Gary and, the other people that have been a part of season 7. It's funny to even call it a season because there's something perennial about this. Like it doesn't have. I think it's one of the fossils from our podcast days where you have to have a season, you have to have an episode, and you have the total episode count, which was your addition, I think, sometime this season. I think early in it, where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna start just counting the episodes. Yeah, I agree, Gary. Like we start when we want to start and we stop when we want to stop. And it just seems to work. So I appreciate obviously you, Chids, and I appreciate all the other peeps that have been a part of this season, and hopefully, seasons moving forward. So it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And I do crave launching my weekend with a conversation here. Just a roundup is makes me feel good.
Awesome.
Mhm.
I agree with everything you said. Okay, so we stayed close to the 30. So I'm gonna punch out now,
There
and
we go.
Rochelle and Gary and whoever else is joining us, have a wonderful weekend.
Happy season closing to you folks as well. However your next week looks, soak it up. Soak it up,
Yeah,
because the next season is 2 months away, right?
enjoy your last week of school, everybody. Peace. This was season 7, episode 35, number 300 of the Decoded Podcast.
Peace, folks.